remember the Trump years, whenever there was some hearing about Donald Trump, some accusation about Donald Trump, the impeachment process against Donald Trump, Canadian media couldn't get enough of it, even though every single one of those fusses resulted in a big nothing. Do you remember the Mueller investigation for Russian influence? It came up with nothing. There must have been hundreds of stories. I can't think of a single American left-wing activist. Like, remember Michael Avenatti, who was going to be the next president of the United States? He's in prison now. The Canadian media loved covering every jot and tittle, every trifle and trivial matter that was to embarrass Donald Trump. But there have been hearings in Congress this past week that, as far as I know, have not been covered anywhere in the Canadian mainstream media, although they are of great substantive gravity. The hearings are for the former executives of Twitter. These hearings are happening only because the Republicans have the majority in Congress now, so they can set the agenda, and very fortuitously, because Elon Musk bought Twitter, took it private, spent $44 billion, and released some powerful secrets about what Twitter had done under the previous regime. In fact, not only did Elon Musk release this, he invited independent journalists, including many on the left, to go to Twitter headquarters, sift through hundreds or thousands of internal memos, and publish their results on Twitter. There was several tranches of these Twitter files, as they've been called, showing political interference, especially in the last presidential election. COVID interference, including where a Pfizer executive, Scott Gottlieb, actively interfered to stop critics of Pfizer and scientists with alternative viewpoints, including that natural immunity was powerful. One of the scariest things that was revealed in these Twitter files is the FBI merger with Twitter. It was basically used not only to capture information about people that the FBI wanted to learn about, but to shut down comments and political conversations that the FBI wanted to stop. Since when was that the matter for police? But I've been saying this even before Elon Musk bought the company and revealed it. Twitter really is an information operation, a spy network where you are the product. I mean, think about it. If you don't have to pay to use Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google, Twitter, if you don't have to pay, are you what's for sale? Well, the answer is of course, and that's not a shocking thing to think about. When you read a newspaper, you may buy the newspaper or pay for a subscription, but really the advertisers are buying you, the audience, and your eyeballs. It's not a shocking concept. The thing is, when you're on Twitter, it's much more than just what you're reading. It's everything you send in what's called a direct message. Every direct message you send through social media becomes the property of that company. You may not know this, but the terms of service of Facebook and Instagram, when you upload a photo to those websites, you grant Facebook, Instagram, and the rest of them a license to use those however they like. You may think, well, maybe they're going to do it to advertise their system, but actually much more troublingly, they sell that information about you, well, to advertisers for sure, but imagine the treasure trove of information available to the CIA, the FBI, the State Department, because remember, Twitter is an international service in many languages. The old board of directors of Twitter didn't have a lot of tech bros on it. It was full of people in their 60s and 70s and maybe even the 80s who were known for their role in the military-industrial espionage complex. These are people who didn't know anything about the online world other than that's a great way to gather information on people and to spread information that you want to spread. It wasn't just Americans, of course, foreign agencies too, including the Saudis, who had a major investment in Twitter and whose spy agency was caught using Saudi staff at Twitter to spy on dissidents. TikTok, one of the most popular social media apps in the world, is obviously a Chinese spy app. Anyways, what news we have is that these Twitter executives under the former regime have been called to testify in Washington, D.C., and indeed they attended. Sometimes tech leaders simply resist or refuse to attend, but they were there. Now, I have to tell you very candidly, some of these representatives asked good questions, excellent questions even, but some of them, in my view, they didn't. Now, I completely sympathize with them, but in the case of, for example, Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, two conservative Republican congressmen, their questions of Vijaya Gadde and Yoel Roth were more painful complaints of how they had been censored and abused. They were more howling at the injustice than they were lawyers doing a cross-examination. You'll see that, and you might not particularly be impressed by their questions, but you should be impressed by the fact that this is allowed to happen at all. And you might think to yourself, why don't we ever ask such questions in Canada? That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.